Welcome to Covenant Communications Audio Library. We are pleased to present Running Down Your Dreams by Hank Smith. We hope you enjoy the presentation.
All right. Hi. This is the part where you say hi back. Hi. I know, you're not used to talking to the person at the pulpit, huh? Usually in church we go like this. Right? Our friends and neighbors get up to speak in church and we're like... and then they look out across the audience and look at their best friends. And so they just look at their talk. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, look, you're leaving. Reminds me of high school. I'd just start talking and girls would start leaving. All right. Anyone else going to leave me too? Hi. Yeah, you can, definitely. Yeah, if you want to see the slides, it'd be much easier. And there's open seats. He's sitting all by himself. That reminds me of high school, too. All right. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. They must have really good refreshments here. Now, if I'm in your stake, where do I go to high school? I go to Westlake. Does anybody not go to Westlake? All right. So most of us go to Westlake, right? Which is a fairly new school, I'm thinking. How many years? 4 years old. So it's not all that new. All right. So I go to Westlake, and what am I? I'm like a mascot. What am I? I'm a thunder. Okay. No, that's okay. I'm a thunder. Thunder's not that scary. Really, it's the lightning part that's scary. Right? You went with the sound. Thunder's just the noise, boys, right? Lightning does the work. Okay, I'm the thunder. And who do I hate? I hate Lehigh. That sounds weird to say. You realize that? For a Mormon to say that? I hate Lehigh. Sounds like layman. All right. Is that something layman would say? Layman and Lemuel? Okay. So I hate Lehigh. And then who are they? They're the Pioneers. Okay. No, it's okay. No, don't laugh. Hey, I bet Pioneers back in the day were really scared of thunder. So this is perfect. You guys chose the right name. You're like, what scares Pioneers? Thunder. Okay. All right. So this feels good. Did you just start school this last week? Just this last what? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Tuesday. You started school on Tuesday. Okay. And you love being back in school. Your excitement on a scale to 1 to 10 would be? 0. I heard a 0. You're a bad thunder. He's skipping. But I heard a 10. So who's a 10? Who's excited to be back in school? Because they get to be done. None of you. I just am not going to raise my hand. Because he might call on me and he's a weird person. I think this will be perfect. I think this message that I put together for you tonight, I'm hoping. You need to pray too. Be praying. That's how I pray. I need you to be hoping that this is going to go well because it's perfect for like the first week of school. I want to start out with a quick story. One of my students, way back when, knew that I liked BYU sports. Anybody like BYU sports? We're still in Utah County, right? So, okay, good. Still in friendly territory. He knew I liked BYU sports, and his dad was a member of the Cougar Club, and so he gave me front row tickets to a BYU basketball game. All right, Brother Smith, take these front row tickets. I'm like, okay. So me and my wife go to the Marriott Center there, and we have our front row tickets. Now, I don't know if you've ever had front row tickets to anything, but you get treated differently. So I go walking up to the ticket booth, and I hand my front row tickets to the lady, and she looks at them just at first like normal, and then she looks back at them and looks at me and looks back at them. And I'm like, what? She says, follow me. And I'm like, okay. So my wife and I, we follow her, and we go on this like red carpet, for reals, red carpet, okay? We're going down this red carpet, and we go into this elevator, and someone works in the elevator. That's their whole job, is to work in the elevator. They like greet you. They're like, welcome to the elevator. And I was like, thank you. And they push the buttons for you. Because now your front row seats, you're no longer a peasant that has to push the buttons on your own. So she pushes them for you. So we go down our 2 floors, the doors open up. She says goodbye. We leave her. We were friends by then. And we were walking out, okay? We walk down more red carpet, and we go to the floor. The floor where they play. The actual floor. And she's like, your seats are right across the floor. And I'm like, I can walk on the floor. Walk on the floor. Walk on the floor. Okay, I'm walking on the floor. I'm walking by the players. They're like waving. I was like, hey guys, we were like friends. Okay, like hey. I like grabbed a ball and they didn't want me to shoot. So I go sit down, front row, right in the middle. Okay, sitting there. My wife sits next to me. Sits down to my right is Stephen Covey. You don't know who that is. Ask your grandpa. Next to my wife sits Cosmo the cougar. You guys, honestly, if I had to be stuck on a desert island and I had to choose 3 people to be stuck with, it would be Stephen Covey, my wife, and Cosmo the cougar. I was in heaven. I made Sarah and Cosmo switch places so I could sit next to Cosmo. All right, so me and Cosmo and Steven and Sarah are having a great time watching the game. You guys, it was incredible. When you sit on the front row, you can hear them talking. You can hear the players talking. You can smell them. They start to smell, and you can smell them. I've noticed that when you're on the front row, you say different things to the ref than when you're on the back row. Because now the ref can hear you. Right? You're not so brave anymore. And I'm like, hey, that was a good one. Good call there, Stripes. Right? Well, game was flying by. I'm having a great time. Middle of the third quarter, this kid named Trent Playstead. He had longer hair. He played for BYU. He's come running down the floor, and he's right in front of us, and he's pivoting around, and he starts looking around for somewhere to throw the ball. Well, he's been playing for a long time, and he's really sweaty, and his hair's really long. And as he's looking around, he is just shooting spray. Just all this sweat is coming off of his head, and it's coming right at us. I mean, I'm opening my mouth. I'm like, ah! I wanted some, right? I think I got some, too, because it was salty. And it was awesome. All right, so I'm here. I got Steven. I got Cosmo. I got sweat in my mouth. It was incredible. Not only am I seeing and hearing them and I'm smelling them, I'm tasting them now. Incredible. End of the fourth quarter comes. It's just about done. I'm watching the clock go down. I'm like thinking, oh, this was the best experience ever. I loved this. And I thought everyone in the entire arena had the same experience I did. So I started looking around, and I looked on the back row. If you've ever been to Marriott Center, another big arena, back row, they're like miles away. And back there I could see them. They looked so bored. They were just like sitting there like. And I was like, what is wrong with you? I can smell them. They smell great. They just looked so bored. And when the game got over, they just got up and left. And I was like, this was incredible. You missed out on an entire game. And then something occurred. Now, this is our quick message. There's a difference between sitting on the front row of life and sitting on the back row of life. Have you ever met a front row teenager? Someone who just wants to be involved? Now, not here today. All right, you guys are like, well, yes, I have met a front row teenager. It's right up here. Back row back here today? Losers. No. No, just kidding, love you. Have you ever met a front row teenager? A teenager that wants to be involved, that wants to be part of things, that wants to meet people, wants to learn, just wants to be a leader. And now, have you ever met a back row teenager? Now, don't get me wrong, everyone's a child of God. But it is so hard to get a back row teenager to do anything. Right? The youth leaders that are here, you know these back row teenagers, right? You're like, hey, come on, we planned this huge activity. We've been planning it for 18 months. Come do it. That's lame. It's so lame. Activities are lame. Fine. Right? And you're dragging them up to the front, and they're like, oh, fine. You're like, oh, I worked my whole life for this. Right? Back row teenagers, everything's lame. School's lame. Happiness is lame. It's all lame. Right? Doesn't matter what it is. Now, you have to decide what you're going to be. Are you going to be a front row teenager or a back row teenager? Now, if you're going to be a front row teenager, let me give you just one quick thing. You should expect opposition. You want to know why? Because back row teenagers hate front row teenagers. They threaten them. It threatens their coolness, I think. Right? Because they're back in the back like, that's lame, I got pecs. And you're on the front row involved, and that bothers them. Like, why are you doing that? And they'll invite you back. They're like, come to the back row with us where all the cool people are. Come to the back row. And you'll be tempted because you'll be like, oh, I want to be cool. I want to fit in, but I want to be front row. But I want to fit in, but I want to be front row, but I want to fit. It's like a cat that has to go to the bathroom, but it's raining outside. Doesn't know what to do, right? Two signals. Well, you've got to decide now to be what? Front row teenager. That's going to be you. You are going to be a front row teenager. Tell the person next to you, I am going to be a front row teenager. Unless you're old, don't say that. All right? Tell the person next to you, I am going to be a front row teenager. All right, you got it? Now let me tell you what's going to happen. Those of you who have decided to be front row teenagers, let me tell you what's going to happen. First thing, I've done this, I've been with youth forever now. It's like Groundhog Day. And one thing I've noticed is that 10 years later, I've done this at least 10 years. 10 years later, you know where front row teenagers are still going to be? They're still in the front row. But now they're front row in ward leadership. They're in the front row of their careers, success, education. They're all in the front row. Guess where the back row teenagers still are? Still in the back row. But now other things are lame. Now happiness is lame. Careers are lame. Education is lame. I used to have pecs. Right? So decide now you're going to be a front row teenager. And I will say this, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I've noticed that front row teenagers 10 years later sign back row teenagers' paychecks. I've noticed that. Some are leaders and some are followers. Or some are just there to hang on for the ride. So be a front row teenager. Write it down. So when it comes to school, front row, clubs, plays, music, whatever it is, front row, right? Activities. Wards, you're on the front row. Mutual activities. Church, you're on the front row. Family, you're on your front row. Right? Scripture study, prayer. You're not being drugged in, like, please come in. Not drugged, sorry. Dragged. Don't drug anyone. That's bad. It's illegal. All right. So, have you made your decision? What are you going to be? Front row teenager. Nice. Be a front row teenager. Parents, write that down so you can remind your teenager tomorrow during scripture study that they promised to be a front row teenager. Right? And they will be there tomorrow morning. Bright and early, front row. All right, now, I called this message Running Down Your Dreams, and you'll learn why here in a second. But really, it's all about goals and achieving things. But really, when we talk about goals, all we're really talking about is choices, right? All goals are, if I achieve a goal, it's because I chose it, right? I chose the little tiny things that got me there. So really, all we're talking about is choices. Have you ever made a bad choice? Absolutely, I've made bad choices just today. Have you ever made a choice that's so bad that you can't hide it? That everyone else is like, whoa, that's a bad choice. Let me show you this guy. Okay, this guy decided to drive drunk. He's driving drunk. He hits a guardrail, but he has no idea what's going on because he's driving drunk, which is a dumb thing to do. So he hits this guardrail, you guys. The guardrail goes through his car and comes out the back of his car. You can't hide that. People pull up. What'd you do? Is it really that noticeable? Yeah, you ripped the guardrail off the road. Life is all about choices. It's no wonder that Dumbledore pulled Harry Potter aside like he does at the end of every movie and gives him great advice. And I think it was book 1 where he said, remember this? It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are. Far more than our abilities. Do you remember that? Some of you are like, he's insane. It is our choices. Want me to do it again? It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are. And he always draws out his words when he wants to make a point. Far more than our abilities. Right? And in the first book, Harry's like 4. And he's like, okay. Right? I have no idea what you're talking about. It is our choices that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. So tonight, what are we talking about? We're talking about choices. It's all about the choices that we make. And I want to tell you about a choice I make just to kind of get things started. You need to know, by the way, when I tell you this story, I'll give you a little preface here. I am not an athlete. I never have been. I'm completely uncoordinated. Anybody with me on uncoordination? Okay, good. I fall down all the time. It's kind of fun when you have kids because they get it too, and it's fun to watch them fall. But here I am, this uncoordinated person, and so I tried to play sports in high school. My high school football coach, I love him, Coach Jake, he used to say to me, he was like, Hank, could you just pretend you know how to play this game? That's all I want you to do, just pretend. I was like, sure, Coach, I can pretend, right? And he would yell at me. I could hear my mom in the stands, leave him alone, right? It was bad, okay? Never a good athlete. You want to know the weirdest part about not being a good athlete? Here's the weirdest part about me, is when I get nervous. Do you have a nervous habit? Any of you have nerves? Pop your knuckles, right? Do weird things. I yawn. Is that not strange? When I'm super nervous, I start to yawn. So there I am, locker room, big game. My coach is like, you relaxed enough tonight? No, I'm super nervous. Oh, you look like it. Strange, okay? Never worked out, me being an athlete. So this story has to do with me being a non-athlete. I'm in a tree. I'm 24 years old. I know. I'm in a ropes course. You ever been in one of these ropes courses? All right, it's where you take grown adults who never get off the couch, and you're like, let's put little helmets on you and let you walk around on ropes. It's never a good idea, okay? And we'll talk about leadership. So there I am on my ropes course, all right? In this ropes course, you got to go from one tree to another across 2 ropes. The one rope is for your hands, another rope is for your feet. Got it? You're supposed to go across as fast as you can, and then you get down, and some people are helping you, you know. And then when you get down the other side, then you talk about how you worked as the team. All right, so there I am, okay? On the other team, the team I'm competing against, are a few friends of mine. And if you're a competitive person like me, you know what it's like to compete against friends, right? Because you hate them. So I was like, I love you guys. I'm going to kill you. All right, so there I am. I'm in the tree, you guys, and I'm crossing. I'm going fast. I can hear my friends. No, don't fall. I'm not going to fall. Jerks. All right, here I go. I'm going to go fast, super fast. And my right foot slips off the rope, which makes the rope go ding. Okay, so my left foot is now bling, hanging out there, but I still got both hands. All right, and I'm trying to calm the rope down. So my leg's going crazy. I'm calming the rope down, though. So I finally am about to get my right foot back on the rope, and my left foot goes, psh, okay, which makes the rope go bling. Now I'm hanging there with 2 hands. I'm like, oh no. I can hear him down there. Oh, he's going to die. I'm like, I'm not going to die. I'm going to figure this out. So I'm hanging on. You know you can't do this for long. So I'm like, oh, please, let me get this foot back on this rope, foot back on the rope. I'm trying. My right hand goes, whoosh. I'm like, oh no. No. All right, so I gripped that rope as hard as I could with my left hand, and I'm hanging there trying to figure out what to do. But I know what's going to happen. It's over. But I'm not going to let it happen. So I squeeze as hard as I can. I can feel it just pulling, and I'm turning and looking. When all of a sudden, my arm made a noise. It was a noise it never made. Kind of startled me. It's like a cork coming out of a bottle. Can you do that? Yeah, it's like that, but all at once. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, like that. And all of a sudden, my arm got longer. And I was like, whoa. I know, go gadget arm. I was like, wow. If I'd known I could do that, life would have been a lot easier. So my arm gets longer, and I think that startled me, my arm getting longer, because my hand no longer worked, and I come barreling out of this tree, okay, all $2 of me, and I hit the ground. It wasn't far enough to die. So now I expected to be taunted by my friends, you guys, but nobody said anything. They all just stood there. And I stand up, and they all looked. You ever seen a dog when it's confused? They all did that at the same time. They all looked at me and went, and I said, what? And one of them says, are you okay? Yeah. You don't look okay. So what do you mean I don't look okay? And I looked to where they were looking, and my shoulder that used to be over here on the left side of my body had come out of socket and had come here underneath my chin. And I was like, whoa. That's usually not right there. I want that to go back to where it was. Why is that right here? And so I tried to put it back, but it wasn't going. It was just sitting right there. I was like, something's wrong. The weirdest thing I remember is looking to where my shoulder used to be, and I could look down and see the back of my shoe. And I was like, I've never been able to do that before. This could be convenient. If I had something on there, I would know. But I want my shoulder back to where it was. Well, at first it was kind of fun because they're like, well, don't move. And it didn't hurt really. So I was like, nah. Walking around towards them. They're like, stop it, sit down. Right? And I was like, hey. Well, then, you guys, after a few minutes, it starts to swell. All right? And I can feel those back muscles just being pulled. Imagine someone makes you touch your toes, and then they put you in a clamp. And they just start pushing you down. All right? Because that's how it felt on my back. I was like, no! Hospital. And they're like, you want to go to hospital? Let's go. So you guys were an hour away. All right, we're up Logan Canyon, so an hour away from the hospital. By the time I get to the hospital, you touch my fingers, I'm dying. All right, just like, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me. I was starting to see things, like my vision was getting blurry. I was like, how? I thought the hospital was really expensive. I think it was just my vision, because we walked in, these 3 doors opened. I was like, whoa, wow, they have 3 doors. So I went in, and these 3 doctors walked in, triplets. And at first I was like, whoa, your mom must be so proud. The 3 of you together, all doctors. And they spoke in unison, which I thought was odd, but, every family is different. So the doctors are talking to me, the triplets are speaking, and I was like, listen, you guys, one of you needs to fix this. And they look confused, but do you know how they fixed it? Do you know how they fixed this? Okay, remember, what would happen? You touch my hand? Right, freak out? Okay. They come over, and the triplets, they grab my hand, okay, and they pull on it. And then they rotate it over my head as many times as it takes until it goes, noise, back into place. So, as I'm standing there, the 3 of them come walking towards me. I'm like, what you guys doing? Boom. The triplets grab my hand. I made a noise. Honestly, I remember making the noise, didn't know it was coming from me. It was something between, it's like if Chewbacca and a humpback whale had a baby. This would be the noise you would hear at its birth. There was some, okay? And my buddy was like, whoa, wish I could speak whale. And my arm goes back into place. All right, so 2 of the triplets left. I don't know where they went. One of them stuck around to talk to me. He says, listen, if you don't go to the physical therapist soon, that is going to happen to you over and over again, because it's already happened once, it's going to happen over and over again. So you need to go get that fixed. And I was like, okay, for shizzle, physical therapist. So that was this Monday. I'm obedient. I go to the physical therapist. This day was to change my life forever. I had no idea that it was going to, though, when I walked in. We were talking for a little while, and he said, what do you do for exercise? And I said, oh, I lift weights. Can't you tell? And he was like, no. However, he said, you're not going to be lifting weights for a while, at least 8 months, more likely a year. Because we are just going to let it heal first for a few months, then we're going to slowly do some exercise on it. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do for exercise? Because I'm supposed to exercise, right? Word of wisdom. And so he says, have you ever tried running? And I was like, no. That's what people do when they can't lift weights. And he's like, well, shocker. So he says, let me introduce you to a new best friend. And he takes me over to this treadmill. Have you ever seen one of these torture machines? It's like a human gerbil thing. You know the gerbil wheel? I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. It's just like one of those. They put you on this and you just go, but you go nowhere. All right, you're running your guts out. You're about to die, but you're going nowhere. Okay, I felt like a gerbil. So he gets me on this torture machine, and he says, how fast do you think you can go? And me, Mr. Competitive, right? Just turn it up all the way. Right? I don't care. I can go as fast as this thing goes. Right? So he's, okay. So he starts turning it up. And I'm like, this is easy. And then it got a little harder, and it got a little harder. But I'm Mr. Competitive, right? So my face, totally calm. I love this. This is awesome. My legs, utter chaos. They are dying. They're sending a signal to my brain, right? Imminent death. You must stop now. And so as soon as he left the room, I was, turn it off, turn it off. I looked down to my little, whatever, numbers down there, and I had gone 0.17 of a mile. One more time. 0.17 of a mile. I was done. I was exhausted. And I had to do this for the next year. I went back there every day and got on the torture machine, and it would just laugh at me. All right? It's like, wuss. So I decided I needed to beat this. And I'm a goal setter. I like goals. I like to put something out there and say, that's what I'm going to go get. So I looked into this whole running thing, what people do and why they're crazy. And I went home one day. It had been about a week after this happened. I went home to my wife and I said, Sarah, I'm going to run a marathon. And she went, oh. My wife is so sweet. And the wives in here, have you ever had to be nice to your husband? right? This is her. She was like, oh, that's a good goal. And I was like, what? She said, no, that's good. That's a good goal. Marathon. And I was like, you don't think I can do it? No, well, this is what she says to me. Hon, guys like you, they don't run marathons. I said, what do you mean, guys like me? And she said, you know what I mean. Bigger guys. Bigger guys? Big-boned guys like you. Love you, big guy. Love you. Yes, you're a big guy. Love you, big teddy bear guy. No marathon guy. Teddy bear guy, good, right? And she said, have you seen runners, marathon runners? They're little guys. Little bones. You're big bones. No marathon. All right? And I said, no, I'm going to do this. And she looked at me with that look, which I'm sure all the wives in here have given their husbands before, like, oh, poor thing. So, what do, you guys, if you're going to try something you've never done before? You got to have a plan, right? So I go to find a plan and I find a book. All right, here's the book. I find it, it's perfect. The Non-Runner's Guide to Running a Marathon. Like, that's me. All right, there's other crazy people out there. So I open the book and it tells me all that I have to do to be insane. First thing I had to do was buy nice shoes. Anybody here a runner? Anybody here run a marathon? Do we have any marathon runners in here? Okay, we do. Oh, perfect. Okay, any halves? Lots of halves? Lots of half marathons. All right. Okay. I had to find good shoes. That was rule number 1. Find good shoes. So they recommended this website. So I go to this website, okay, and you type in all your information, you hit return, and it tells you what type of shoe is best for you. And they had all these shoes, like the Nimbus, the Aero Glider, the Adrenaline. I was like, sweet. Which one's for me? And I hit return. Brrr, ding. The Beast. The Beast. I could hear Gaston. I say we kill the beast, right? So I order the beasts. I get the beasts in the mail. They're massive for bigger guys. And I'm out starting my marathon. All right. Now, how far did I run that day? 0.17. I had to run 0.17 and I was done. How far is a marathon? 26.2 miles. Now, I hadn't got to the 0.2 yet. 26.2 miles. Anybody know where this comes from, a marathon? Anybody know his name? His name is Phidippides. Okay, we're going to call him P. Diddy. All right, so P. Diddy, you guys, has to deliver a message from a place called Marathon to a place called Athens. And so he runs from Marathon to Athens. Guess how far it is? It's not. It's 24 miles from Marathon to Athens. He runs that far, delivers the message that they had won the war, and then he died. So thousands of years later, some people are like, let's all do this. It'll be so much fun. Let's all die. But you're saying, Brother Smith, I thought it was 26.2 miles. How come he only ran 24? It's because in the 1908 Olympics in London, where they were this last year, right? In London, they extended the race 2.2 miles so the runners could run in front of the Queen. Can you imagine? You've run 24 miles. They're like, could you just go a little bit further? The Queen wants to see you running. Would you be like, for reals? Queen Latifah can come to me. I am not running an extra 2. So they extend the race 2.2 miles so that we can run in front of the Queen. So because of P. Diddy and the Queen, now we are, sounds like a band, doesn't it? This is P. Diddy and the Queen. All right. That could be our new band, Brax. Me and you could be the Queen. All right. So... Oh, stop it, you guys. It's no having fun. We're Mormon. All right, now, let me show you someone who I ran into on my training. It's this guy, Eric Weinmayer. Have you ever heard of Eric Weinmayer? Eric Weinmayer, let me give you his story. In elementary school, he went home one day and he told his mom that his eyes hurt. He said, Mom, my eyes hurt. And by the 5th grade, he's completely blind. So here's a boy who is born with full sight, loses his sight in elementary school, and is now completely in the dark. He said, the only person that got me through this was my mom. My mom made me go to blind school. I didn't want to, but she made me go. She said, Eric, you're going to learn to read Braille. Let's go. So she took him to blind school every day so he could learn to read Braille. She made him learn how to use a cane, and he hated it. In fact, he says, when he would walk down the street and he would feel a sewer grate with his cane, he would accidentally drop his cane down the sewer grate. He's like, uh-oh, goodbye. Right? After 9 canes, he decided his mom wasn't going to give up. So he just kept using his cane. She taught him to use a guide dog. So by the time he's 15 years old, you guys, this young man who had complete sight when he was younger, now completely blind, is fully functional as a human being. All because of who? All because of his mom. All because of his mom. And then when he's 15 years old, his father comes one day to get him from school to give him the news that his mother had been killed in a car accident. So now the second time in his life, he says, this was harder than the going blind. He had to deal with losing his mother. His one best friend, he called her. Well, when he's 16 years old, he goes to get a part-time job, maybe like many of you. He goes to get a part-time job, and he is not hired. Why? He's blind. No one will hire him. In fact, one of his last interviews, whoever was hiring him said, listen, Eric, I'd love to hire you, but you just need to realize, son, you have limitations. And he said that got to him. Why? Why do I have limitations? You haven't even given me a chance. So he decides he wants to do something no other blind person can do. He wants to show the world that a blind person doesn't have limitations. So he starts to rock climb. Do we have any rock climbers in here? Can you imagine doing it completely blindfolded? Right? Completely blind. He goes out to rock climb. And we'll shorten the story here. He becomes the first and only blind man to do what? He climbs Mount Everest. And this is something he said, and I want you to notice this. He said, after 16 years of blindness, one thing I've learned is that life is never meant to be easy. You've learned that by now, haven't you? Life is not easy. It's exciting. It's challenging, maybe. It's rewarding from time to time, but never easy. Each time I was able to go one step further, that was one step further than I knew was possible. And when I got to wherever I was heading, I found myself in a place that at one time only existed in my mind. Meaning what? He'd only dreamed about it, but then he made it real. Now listen to what he says next. Striving and achieving is part of our nature. It is built into our genetic makeup. Do you believe that? Is striving and achieving part of your nature? Do you like to achieve things? Do you like to set goals and achieve them? Is it part of your nature? I think it is. I think it's very godlike. Look at the scripture, Ether chapter 3. In Ether chapter 3, what does the brother of Jared need? Does anybody remember? He needed light, right? He had these barges and he needs light in them. And so when he built them, they were completely dark. And he's like, well, we can't travel in darkness. So he goes to the Lord in verse 23. And what does the Lord tell him he can't do in verse 23? 2 things. You can't have windows, they'd break. You can't have fire. Can you imagine the brother of Jared? He's like, I know. That's why I'm here. And then the Lord, at the end of verse 25, instead of telling him what to do, what does he ask him? What do you think? What's your idea? Now I'm reading this, you guys. I'm wondering, has the brother of Jared stumped the Lord? The Lord's like, I don't know. You got me here. Right? Got any ideas? Noah? Adam? Any ideas? No, we got nothing. What do you got? No, the Lord could do it, right? He'd be like, hey, let's get some solar power. We'll light those things up. We'll give you a little Wi-Fi, right? He could do it. But he doesn't. Why? Why does he want the brother of Jared to figure it out? This is what I think the Lord is trying to teach us with this story and other stories like it. I think he's trying to say, and this is to teenagers talk, right? I think the Lord would say to you, listen, I gave you a brain. I expect you to use it. Now, if you get nothing else out of this talk tonight, remember this one phrase. You with me? One phrase. You are the creative force of your life. One more time. You are the creative force of your life. If you want something to happen in your life, what would the Lord say? Make it happen. You do it. My friends, you are the children of a creator. He expects you to create. If you have a dream, or if you have something that you would like to see happen in your life, I think the Lord would say, well, don't do it that way and don't do it that way, but go ahead and figure it out. Go for it. And oddly enough, the Lord made his idea work. What idea did he have? Do you remember? He brings back rocks. He's like, if you touch them, they'll light up. Can you imagine the Lord's like, I bet there's angels going, that's his idea. Rocks? I was thinking electricity, but let's do rocks. The Lord makes his dream happen. His idea work. One more time. You are the what? The creative force of your life. You might be sitting here, Brother Smith, no, kids from my school, we don't go to Yale, we don't go to Harvard, we don't get full ride scholarships. If you create it, it will happen. You make it happen. That's what I learned in running this marathon. In fact, it says it all over in the Strength of Youth pamphlet. I started looking for it. Look at some of these phrases out of the Strength of Youth pamphlet. The Lord wants you to choose right from wrong and act for yourself. He wants you to, quote, direct your life. He wants you to choose to do many good things, to set high goals and work hard to achieve them. I think there's something spiritual about this poem. Let me read it to you. It's from William Ernest Henley. I'm sure you've heard it before. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. There's something true about that. There's something inside that makes you go, rawr, right? I am the creative force of my life. Well, marathon day comes. For those of you who ran the marathon, what time did you get up? Do you remember? 3 a.m. Yeah, got up at 3 a.m. Got my shoes, the beasts. All right. My wife took me to the drop-off where the buses take you to the starting line. And I remember saying goodbye to her. It was like I was going to war. She looked at me like, goodbye. And I was like, I'll be back in a couple hours. She's like, I believe you. Why are you being so dramatic? I love you. Will you sign this will? No, I'm going to be back. She's like, goodbye, beast. And so I get on the bus, you guys, and we take the bus up to the starting line, 26 miles to the starting line. We're in the trees. We're in the stars. I was like, we are so far from home. I felt like Nemo out there. And I'm like, I am going to find my way home. 26 miles, and the starting gun goes off. How far did I run that first day? Do you remember? 0.17. How far was I going to run today? 26.2. Do you remember? Guys like you don't run marathons. Let me show you a picture. There's me in my cute yellow shorts. My wife took this picture. What's there in front of me? Finish line. I remember getting to my wife, and she said, how did you do that? I think she was so excited to see me alive that she was crying. And she said, how did you do that? And I said, guys like me don't run marathons. And she said, shut up. She said, how did you do it? I said, I don't know really. It's all a big blur. But I'm going to keep going. And so she took this picture of me when I went. Now, this is not about Brother Smith, and this is not about marathons. I don't want you to go run a marathon. Really, you can't walk for a week. Your toenails fall off. It's awful. But what this is about making the impossible become possible. What I once thought was impossible became possible because I tried. I decided that I wanted to do it. Now, I want you to think the same thing. What is there in your life that if we took the limitations off, you would try? You would go for. You would think, you know what, I'm going to try that. Instead of saying I can't, I'm going to say, why not? Let me give it a shot. One of my friends is John Hilton III. I don't know if you've ever heard of John Hilton III. He's a very good friend of mine, but John is crazy. This man decides he wants to learn Spanish. So he does. He goes and gets whatever classes he needs to, and he learns Spanish. And since he did it with Spanish, he decided he wanted to do it with Chinese. So he went and taught himself Chinese. He just makes up his mind that he's going to do something, and then he finds a way to make it happen. It's very inspiring to me. So will you pick something tonight? Will you think of something that you said, if you took my limitations off, here's what I would do. Now, don't be 11 and be like, I would fly. Yes, I know. Thank you. All right. Let's all go back to the deacon's corps. Now, after we all fly, let's think of something that you would do if you took your limitations off. It might be musical. It might be academic. It might be athletic. Whatever it is. Something where you're like, you know what? I'm going to give this a try. I'm at least going to look into it. Instead of saying I can't, I'm going to try this out. Let me tell you one thing that I was not prepared for. I didn't know would happen. I didn't realize that once I started to do this, that other people would want to do it too. There seems to be an inspiring thing about somebody breaking through their own limitations. Oh, by the way, I should mention this. I found out that I kind of like these. So I gave up the weightlifting side and I kept the marathoning, and I've run, next month I'll run my 17th marathon. Because I enjoy them. Now again, this isn't about Brother Smith, it's not about marathons, but I wanted to show you these pictures. On your upper left is one of my best friends who decided he wanted to run a marathon too, if I could. And so he lost 60 pounds and ran a marathon with me. Because he chose to. On the upper right-hand side is my brother-in-law, who when I told him I was going to run a marathon, immediately asked me if I had life insurance. But then he saw me do it, and he decided he could do it too. On the bottom left is my wonderful wife, who ran a marathon with me. And the guy in the middle, some of you might think, well, this is just for young people, Brother Smith. That's my father-in-law, her dad, that he ran his first marathon at 58. And he's run 6 or 7. But the bottom right is my favorite one. That's my sister. My sister Chantel, who when I ran my first marathon smoked 2 packs a day. But then she said, if my little brother can do the impossible, I can too. And so she quit smoking, which she had tried many times before, and decided to run a marathon. Now I'm going to give you this little piece of advice. If you want to inspire your family and your friends, don't just be their cheerleader, although that is a great thing. Show them how to break through limitations. And they will follow you. They will want to do it just like you have done. Being a cheerleader is great, and I want you to be your family's greatest cheerleader and your friend's greatest cheerleader. But I also want you to show them that you can do it too, that you can break through your own limitations. So will you pick something tonight? Because I want to help you. I'm going to give you 3 ways to achieve your dream. There's going to be others that are detailed just to your specific situation, but I want to give you 3 ways to achieve your dreams. All right? 3 quick things that you can remember, that you can kind of keep with you, and that will hopefully get you through. Number 1, and we're going to use kind of the marathon analogy to do this if you don't mind. Number 1 is a rule of marathoning, and it's a rule of life. You never skip an aid station. That is number 1. You never skip an aid station. Now, in marathons, those of you who've run a marathon or a half marathon, aid stations are gifts from heaven, aren't they? They are wonderful. They are full of Gatorade and water, and sometimes fruit or other things. And there's people there that are like, you're amazing, you're the best. The interesting thing is, where's your first aid station on a marathon? What mile? Do you remember? It's mile 3. You get to mile 3 and you hit your first aid station. The inexperienced runner at mile 3 will do what? Will skip the aid station because they're there to run 26 miles and they're only on their 3rd mile. So they'll think, I'm not going to waste time to stop and get a drink or to walk. I'm just going to run right by. The wise marathoner stops and drinks because he knows that that aid station's important when? In about 6 miles, that aid station's going to become important because if he doesn't take it now, he'll be dehydrated then. And if he's dehydrated, then he's going to get sick. And if he gets sick, he's not going to finish. So he decides, now I'm going to take this early, even though it might not feel like I need it right now. Well, look what Elder Worthland said in a talk once in 1989. He said, marathon runners pass aid stations located along the course. They provide water, encouragement, and assistance. Without this help, many runners could not carry on. You young people also have, quote, aid stations to help you keep moving along your course. So what are some of those aid stations the Lord has provided for us that we should never skip? Let me give you a couple. Seminary. You don't skip seminary. Prayer. Scripture study. Temple attendance. You don't think, I don't need it tonight. I don't need my scriptures tonight. I'm good. Family home evening. A wise family never skips family home evening. Because they know they might not feel like they need it now, but they're going to feel like they need it when? Later on. A wise teenager is smart enough to think, you know what, I'll probably need this later on. It's scary and sad in my position and many leaders here to see young people skip aid stations early and to see them meet the consequences later when they get spiritually sick later in life. So what's rule number 1? Tell the person next to you. Never skip an aid station. All right, here we go. Number 2. Number 2, in marathoning and in life, if you want to win, you have to conquer 2 things. Conquer complaining and comparison. All right, let's first talk about complaining. Anybody here a pro complainer? All right, you can point them out if they're in your family. You can just kind of be like, right here. Okay? Or if they're in your class or in your quorum, here's a pro-complainer. Can I hear the tone of you pro-complainers? What's the tone of a good complain? Oh, that's good. It's like a rat giving birth, right? I don't want to. Right? It's just awful. That complaining tone is three things. It is unattractive, unattractive, and unattractive. If you never want to get married, become good at complaining. Now, I want to help you overcome this, especially you pros who are complaining. So I'm going to give you two things. Number one is from Elder Holland. He says negative speaking often flows from negative thinking, including negative thinking about ourselves. So often, where does complaining start? The way we think about ourselves. We see our own faults. We speak or at least think critically of ourselves. And before long, that's how we see everyone and everything. So where does it start? How you think about yourself. The things you think about yourself. Second, I'm going to give you a way to do this because you're going to find yourself complaining, and maybe someone here, if they're in your family or something, could stop you and remind you of this man, William Hyde. If you've been to Nauvoo in the last few years, you probably saw the Trail of Hope going down Party Street, and along the Trail of Hope are plaques where they have journal entries. Well, this William Hyde of the Mormon Battalion wrote this. He says, "The thoughts of leaving my family for the Mormon Battalion at this time are indescribable. My family consisted of a wife and two small children who were left in company with an aged father, mother, and brother. Most of the battalion left families. When we were to meet with them again, God only knew. Nevertheless, we did not feel to murmur." Now, at the beginning of his statement, is he murmuring? No, what's he doing? He's just sharing his feelings. He's sharing the way he feels. There's nothing wrong with sharing the way you feel. It's about the way you do it and the things you choose to say. So, we're going to use Brother Hyde's pattern here, and we are going to do this from now on. Your parents say to you, "Hey, I need you to do the dishes." And you used to go, "He never doesn't do the dishes when there's lots of dishes. He gets to do the dishes and there's little bit of dishes, and now I do lots of." Right? And then your little brother's like, "Shut up! Right? And it's just awful. We're not going to let that happen anymore. Your parents are going to say, "Hey, I need you to do the dishes," and you're going to say to them, "The thoughts of doing the dishes at this time are indescribable. I don't want to do the dishes. I hate the dishes. Nevertheless, I do not feel to murmur." And you will go over and do the dishes, right? You can express yourself. That's totally fine. Your parents go to wake you up tomorrow morning for scripture study. "Wake up. The thoughts of waking up at this time are indescribable. I do not have good feelings for anyone in this family. Nevertheless, I do not feel to murmur." Right? Let's do it. Turn to the person next to you. "Nevertheless, I..." Perfect. Perfect. All right, we're going to help you conquer complaining. Do you remember what the second one was? Conquering, not just complaining, but you have to conquer comparison. Comparison will kill you in a marathon. The fastest person to run a marathon on stilts ran it in 8 hours and 25 minutes. Now, if I'm comparing myself to them, I totally beat them. Only problem is, what? They're on stilts. So that makes comparison useless, right? Now, this is easy to do in a marathon. It's easy to see if someone's on stilts and someone's not. But in life, you really can't tell. You can't tell what someone might be struggling with. You can't tell what kind of childhood someone had. So you can't compare yourself to other people. This is a problem for young women more than young men, I think, than my experience, where they're constantly comparing themselves to other people. One girl said to me once, "Brother Smith, I felt so pretty till she walked in." What? No, that's not the way we live. We don't live being pretty if we're prettier than other people, right? The pride is in the It's not about being prettier, it's about being pretty. That's fine being pretty, not prettier, right? So we've got to get rid of this comparison. We've got to drop this. And girls, we've got to get rid of this, "I love my eyes, I hate my elbows," right? "I love my bangs, I hate my shoulders." I don't know, but we've got to get rid of this. Right? This self-criticism. Look at some of the other people that have run marathons, all right? Here's the fastest marathon dressed as Santa. 3 hours and 12 minutes. 3 hours and 12 minutes. I beat him by 3 minutes, and he had boots, beard, coat. Oldest woman to run a marathon is 86 years old. Right? She's just a kid. The oldest man to run a marathon is 98. The youngest person to ever run a marathon was 3 years old. The fastest speed walker, 3 hours and 21 minutes. I beat them by 12 minutes, and they walked. That was my best time ever. And I'd be like, but you walked. Right? So comparison, what can it take? It can take all of our happiness away from us. In fact, in my sister-in-law, Amy, in her bathroom, she has a little sign that says, comparison is the thief of joy. And it really is. You'll have joy over something and someone will come take it because you compare it to somebody else. Have you ever been super happy with your Christmas presents until you saw your friends? And then all of a sudden, I'm no longer happy with those. Right? I love my old house that I had in West Jordan, but my neighbor's house, he was one of my best friends, his house could eat my house. Right? And so whenever I look at my house, I'm like, I love my house. And I look at his, and I'm like, oh, I hate you, house. Right? We can no longer compare. Here's some more. Fastest marathon running backwards was 3 hours and 43 minutes. Fastest marathon barefoot, 2 hours and 12 minutes. Barefoot. Right? He just sped by me without any shoes. And if you want to compare yourself to this guy. Here's the world record holder, Haile blah 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 from Ethiopia. All right? He ran a marathon in 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 59 seconds. If you want to do the math on that, check this out. That is a 4:43 mile for 26 miles. That guy runs a 4:43 mile for 26 miles. Now, if I run my very best marathon, which is 3 hours and 9 minutes, how would I feel when I compare myself to Haile? Right? It doesn't matter how good I do. I will never be that good. So should I give up? Should I quit? Yes, I should. Thank you. A thought from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No. We don't give up. Who do we compare ourselves against? Ourselves. We compare ourselves. Am I doing better than I was last year? Am I doing better than I was 2 years ago? You might even ask yourself those questions. Is there music I used to listen to that I would no longer listen to? If the answer is yes, you are on your way. Is there words I used to say that I would no longer say? If the answer is yes, you are on your way. Is there jokes in movies that I used to laugh at that I would no longer laugh at? If the answer is yes, then you are on your way. The only person you compare yourself to is yourself. In fact, here's what Elder Holland says. He says, I testify, no one of us is less treasured or cherished of God than another. He cheers on every runner, calling out, the race is against sin, not against each other. One more time. The race is against sin, not against each other. All right. So what was number one? Let's go back. Never do what? Never skip an aid station. What's number two? Conquer complaining and comparison. Conquer complaining. Number three is our last one. It is keep moving forward. Look what Elder Worthland says. He says, I suppose some of you at one time or another are going to feel that you're hitting the wall. In marathoning, hitting the wall is when you're just mentally and emotionally done and physically done. Your body just can't keep going. You're going to feel an almost compelling urge to quit, he says. Give up or give in to temptation. You will meet, not might, you what? You will meet challenges, adversities, and temptations that seem to be more than you can bear. You are going to hit those times in your life. In fact, some of you in this room are probably going through those times right now, where it just seems to be too much. Where you're saying, Lord, this is too much. We can't do this anymore. Well, how do you keep moving forward at those times? I want to show you just a couple of people. The first one is Roger Bannister. Have you ever heard of him? Roger Bannister, he's a big-time runner. Way back on May 6, 1954, Roger Bannister did something that the world said was impossible. Anybody know what it was? He broke a 4-minute mile. Scientists said it was impossible. Even Bannister himself had tried a number of times, hitting 4:03, 4:02, even 4:01, but never breaking a 4-minute mile. Well, he goes out on May 6, 1954, and how many times has he got to run around the track? He's got to run 4 times around the track. All right? Lap number 1, he runs in 57.5 seconds. He is on his way. You do that 4 times, you're easily going to break it. But obviously, he's going to get a little tired, and he runs lap 2 in 1 minute, 0.7 seconds. So his total time now is 1:58.2. He's still there, right? He's still on his way. But he obviously is going to keep slowing down. His third lap is a 1:02.3. He's now at 3 minutes, 0.5 seconds. But the problem is he's trending. Where is he trending? 57, 1, 102. What's the lap supposed to be? 104, 105, right? If he's trending. But if he does that, he's not going to make it. But look at his quote. The man, and we'll add woman here, the man or woman who can drive himself or herself further once the effort gets painful is the man who will win. Not until it gets painful, but drives them further when it gets painful. And this is why I love Roger Bannister. He runs a 58.9 to finish at 3:59.4, becoming the first human being ever recorded to run a sub 4-minute mile. The man or woman who can drive himself or herself further once that effort gets painful, that's the man who will win. I want to share with you another story about a 15-year-old girl I met about 2 years ago. Her name's Michaela. I live out in Mapleton, and Michaela lives in my ward. And I noticed something different about Michaela, and you'll know what that is here in a minute. But let me tell you her story. When she was 1 year old, her parents divorced. And those of you who have gone through a divorce in the family know how traumatic this can be on everyone, including babies, right? Her father remarries a woman that Michaela refers to as the wicked stepmother. Now, not all stepmothers are wicked, but this one was. This woman was very physically abusive to this little baby. And when her father was away at work, this stepmother would just beat this child. And then always the excuse, oh, she fell. Oh, this fell on her. So she's got bruises and all over her and cuts, but it's always she fell. But she's being beaten. When she turns 3, the wicked stepmother says to her father, I can no longer live with this wretched child. You must choose between the two of us. And her father chooses the stepmother and sends his daughter to live with his own mother. Michaela, in telling me this story, said kind of jokingly, non-jokingly, I just wasn't a very wanted kid. So you can already see where this life is headed, right? Well, she goes to live with her grandmother, who becomes her mother. But her grandmother, she says to me, I was talking to Grandma too, she says, hey, I was 62. I had a 3-year-old, not just a 3-year-old, but a 3-year-old with behavioral problems. If you've ever been around an abused baby, they can be very aggressive and very mean. And she said, Michaela was just very difficult to deal with. She said, I didn't know what to do. I was tired. I didn't know how to deal with this 3-year-old. So she says, we went to the local rec center and I enrolled her in every class for toddlers. And she said, this is where we were going to live our life, at this rec center. She said, I stayed with her the whole time when she was there, and I just watched her in these classes. She said the first class she got into was swimming. She didn't like it very much. She just wanted to get out of the pool. I agree with her. I don't think swimming's good for your figure. Look at whales. All right, so the next class she gets involved in is gymnastics. And it's like she was born for it. She starts loving gymnastics. And Grandma says, wonderful. Let's do gymnastics. And so Michaela, every day after her elementary school, was doing gymnastics as she was growing up. Well, she hit about 7 or 8 years old. And the coaches came to Grandma and they said, listen, there's something special about this girl. She's really good. We want her to compete. And so Grandma said, okay, that'd be fine. So they got Michaela ready for competition. And not only did she start to compete, she started to win. And by the time she's 13 years old, at every meet she's enrolled, or every meet she participates in, she wins 3 golds and the all-around. In fact, she says to me one time, she goes, well, one time we were late to a meet, and we showed up 5 minutes before I was supposed to go on. So I didn't have time to warm up. I just put my clothes on and went out. And she's kind of sheepish. And I won all 3 golds and the all-around. So they started talk of the Olympics. They said, Michaela, we don't know if you're good enough, but maybe. So she starts to prepare for the Olympic tryouts. I'm going to refer to her words now. It was Thursday, August 25th, 2011. I was on my first lap to warm up at the gym when I collapsed. My coaches came running. My lips were turning blue. My heart had stopped beating. Luckily, one of the assistant coaches was studying to become a nurse, and he began CPR. The ambulance came and took me to the hospital. After multiple electrocardiograms, blood tests, and stress tests, the doctors decided they needed to put a defibrillator in my chest to regulate my heartbeat. And that's the something different. When you meet Michaela, you will see right under her collarbone, right here, she wears a blouse, you can see a square, where under her skin is a defibrillator. And what this defibrillator does is it monitors her heart. And if her heart stops, guess what it does? It zaps her. I just saw her about 10 days ago, and she said, Brother Smith, guess what? I died on Thursday. I said, what? She said, yeah, I can always tell when I'm about to die because I get really tired. And so she goes, so I went at lunch with my friends. We were sitting on the grass, and I just laid backwards. I just thought, And her heart stopped, and guess what that thing did? Right? And she sits up. Okay? And her friends, what happened? I died. Stop it. Don't do that, Michaela. All right? She's like, it's okay. Got my little box. All right? So luckily, you guys, fortunately, this little box is going to keep Michaela alive. But there was bad news. You can no longer compete. The defibrillator cannot keep up with gymnastics. So you're out. And she got teary. I don't want to tell this story like she took it in stride. It was like, wonderful. That's not how she took it. She looked at me in tears. She said, why would the Lord give this to me just to take it away? After I'd worked so hard. Well, I asked her, I said, Michaela, what are you going to do? You going to give up? You going to give up on the Lord? Because you're upset? No. So Michaela, my 15-year-old hero, starts coaching gymnastics. She tells me, I like to see the little girls succeed. She wrote this at the bottom of her letter. Brother Smith, my story's not over yet. I have a long way to go. I'm starting to realize life is full of surprises. One never knows what life-changing events might come their way. There is a reason for everything, though. The Lord has some really great plan for me. I just haven't discovered it yet. I want to give him a chance. I want to find out just what that might be. That is the epitome of keep moving forward. Elder Quentin L. Cook, when he was on his mission, had to memorize this poem. I want to give it to you, and maybe you might memorize it as well. I think his mission president was Elder Marion D. Hanks, and he had his missionaries every day recite a 3-line poem from Emma Wheeler Wilcox. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. I'll say it one more time. I know some of you are copying it down. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. That would be great up on a mirror, up on a locker, wouldn't it, for this school year? There is nothing that can stop a, quote, determined soul. Well, I was looking at this, and I wanted to finish this message with you in a more powerful way other than just, hey, be determined. And I was looking at those last 3 words, a determined soul. And I thought of the determined soul. Our Savior is the epitome of a determined soul. Let me ask you a question. Did he ever skip an aid station? Did he ever complain? Did he ever compare himself to others? And in the Garden of Gethsemane, when it was so hard for him, what did he do? He moved forward. He said, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, I will move forward if you want me to. He is the epitome of a determined soul. And so when I challenge you to become a determined soul, it's almost challenging you to become like your Savior. It's no wonder that Paul said in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. May you set goals tonight, but may you also be like him and be a finisher, is my prayer. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
We hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Our authors and artists enjoy hearing from their listeners. You can write to them, care of Covenant Communications, P.O. Box 416, American Fork, Utah 84003, or by email at info@covenant-lds.com. To receive additional information on Covenant products, visit our website at www.covenant-lds.com.